Today we have our first ever guest on the show. It'll be college football expert Cade Bernard. We'll discuss Andrew Luck's retirement, his college football playoff predictions, the Stanford USC matchup this week, and the ever-prevailing East Coast bias in college football. I'm Nathan Gustafson, and this is Clutch Time. On the phone with me today, I have our college football expert here at ClutchTime, Cade Bernard. Cade, thank you for coming on the show.
Hey, Nate, thanks for having me. I appreciate being here.
Yep, thank you for being on. So I wanted to first start the show off by getting your thoughts on Andrew Luck's early retirement.
Yeah, obviously it was really shocking, and, as an NFL fan, it's kind of disappointing news to see. I think obviously it'll impact the Colts a lot. I don't think that it'll impact them so much to the point, where they were years ago. I think with this new offensive line, Quentin Nelson is a really nice centerpiece, decent running game, and solid receiving and tight ends. And the defense getting better, that, I think the Colts will still be battling around the 500 range. But, the guy like Jacoby Brissett, I don't think that the Colts are now, anyways, able to compete for deep playoff runs.
Yeah, I'd be inclined to agree with you. Could you, do you think that this could start a new trend in the NFL, that more players will follow Andrew Luck's path and prioritize their health over the sport of football?
Yeah, completely. And, you look at someone like Gronk last year, too. I think Gronk definitely probably did have a little bit more in the tank, but at a certain point, is going out there and getting your body destroyed, going through the same rinse and repeat as Andrew's talked about, going through rehab, getting hurt at a certain point. Is it really worth it, to keep on putting yourself through that? So I definitely think that, players who have made their fair share contract-wise and getting their money and putting their family in a good position, I think we could definitely start to see more players start to do that.
Yeah, so now do you think it diminishes Andrew Luck's reputation as a competitor when you have quarterbacks like Tom Brady playing in their mid-40s, or you had a Brett Favre who played until he was in his early 40s but took as big of a beating as Andrew did? Do you think that diminishes his reputation as a competitor?
You look at a guy like Tom Brady, I think he's been kind of fortunate, aside from that knee injury, to not really sustain too brutal of injuries throughout his career. Favre is a special case. I don't think anyone can question Andrew Luck's willingness to compete, with the injuries that he dealt with, through in games going into the playoffs and throughout the regular season, not one to come out of the game. I don't think that anyone who has been around football, who's been in the league, would ever say that this takes away from Luck's competitive spirit at all. No.
Yeah, most definitely. All right, let's shift gears to college football. That is your area of expertise. I gave my 4 college football playoff teams earlier on the show. I picked Clemson, Georgia, Ohio State, and Texas. Could you give me your 4 teams and then sort of give a little explanation?
Sure. So I think that, most people can agree that Clemson is probably about as sure of a lock as you can get for the playoffs. They've got their first and really what I think their only test coming up this Saturday against Texas A&M. I don't think anyone in the ACC is anywhere near good enough to kind of give them a game, or at least keep it competitive for 4 quarters. So I think that Clemson's going to come out of the ACC as the champion there, undefeated. Looking at the Big 12, Oklahoma and Texas, I'm still inclined to give Oklahoma the edge there to win the Big 12, beat Texas. I think that the way, Jalen Hurts is looking in the Oklahoma system is just continuing to churn out high production out of that quarterback position. I think their defense is much improved over last year. They're looking fast and physical 2 days ago against Houston. So I think Oklahoma's going to come out of the Big 12. I think Ohio State is still going to beat Michigan again and come out of the Big 10. I still don't like Shea Patterson a whole lot. I think Justin Fields looked really good for Ohio State. They came out really hot, 28 points in the first quarter, and took up the gas. That's why it's a little closer than it may have looked at first.
I'll be honest, Cade, I think you're much kinder than me. I would use the word suck and awful to describe Shea Patterson, so I really appreciate the generosity you're giving him there.
No, of course. He's not good at football. I guess it's the way to talk about Shea Patterson over there at Michigan. Their offense is boring. It's not dynamic really with him at the helm.
Agreed.
Their offense is Jim Harbaugh's khaki pants, essentially, is the best way to talk about them there.
Yeah.
The Pac-12, unfortunately, I don't think they'll have any representatives coming out of there. I don't think that there's a whole lot of difference between kind of the tops of Washington, Oregon, maybe Stanford, Utah. I don't think that there's a whole lot of difference in the skill gap there, so I can see all of them beating each other on any given day. So I think the winner of the Pac-12 will probably have around 2 to 3 losses. I think Oregon was maybe the best shot in terms of getting national relevance, beating Auburn. Unfortunately, they couldn't hold on there. So I think the Pac-12 will once again be left out. And then the SEC, I think, it's a toss-up between Alabama and Georgia. They both have some pretty tough schedules going through the LSUs and the Auburn gauntlets. Both of them do play Auburn on the road. They're one of the common opponents. I'm still going to go ahead and go with Alabama as long as their defense starts to gel a little bit more throughout the year. I think that with Tua at quarterback, they still have a very good offense, really good receiving core. But the loss to Moses, their inside linebacker, before the season started was definitely a blow to them. But I still can't count out Saban and the offense. And I think Tua's going to continue to lead them. They'll reappear in the college football playoff.
All right. And can you give me your national champion?
I got to go Clemson again. Even in the first game, I don't think that Trevor Lawrence looked like the invincible guy that everyone was kind of making him out to be after last year's great playoff run from him. But I think their running back attack with Etienne, and their defense, it's strong, big, fast. They reload, and I think that they still have the best well-rounded attack. They stay healthy to repeat.
Okay, and then sort of you mentioned you don't think a Pac-12 team is going to make the playoff. That sort of coincides with this thing that's existed for a long time, the East Coast bias in college football, where a lot of these guys on the East Coast, people who vote on the playoff, people who vote on the Heisman, have to stay up until 1:32 in the morning just to see West Coast teams play, and they often don't do so, and you see West Coast teams and players suffer because of it. I certainly think in 2015, when Christian McCaffrey won the Heisman but was robbed of it, that was one of the most heinous things I've ever seen in my life. And consistently, we see Pac-12 teams getting snubbed from making the playoff. Could you just speak more to that and sort of why you think it continues to prevail and exist in today's college football?
Yeah, of course. I definitely think that the East Coast bias is a real thing. You constantly see it with, you turn on SportsCenter and a vast majority of the focus is on the SEC, the ACC. You got guys like Paul Feinbaum, I think that's his name. ESPN's main college football guys are all people who preside from the South or played at these Big Ten schools. So not a whole lot of focus. And it doesn't help that the ESPN has partnerships with SEC, so they're more apt to give those schools the better time slots. Washington's getting stuck with a 7:30 game, even though they're a top 12 team in the country, top 15 team in the country. So that definitely does hurt them there. And then, even looking at the new AP polls that came out, Auburn beats Oregon on a last-second play. Oregon drops all the way to 16, and Auburn jumps up to 10. So you're kind of giving Auburn the respect for winning that tough game, but then you're almost punishing Oregon, dropping them 5 spots when, some of the teams ahead of them, like, the Florida, who looked, I want to say, awful against Miami, is still also, around that 10 to 12 range. I don't think that the committee and, the AP voters, the Heisman voters are, necessarily watching these games. I think they're putting these teams on the later time slots on purpose. College game day starts at 6 in the morning on the West Coast. It just seems like until we can get back to a point where there truly is a dominant team, such as USC in the mid-2000s, I don't think that the college football world, unfortunately, is going to be paying much attention to the guys playing their games at 10:30 p.m. on the East Coast.
Yeah, and I've been largely in agreeance with you on just about everything that we've talked about, so let's shift gears to something where you and I might not see eye to eye. So first off, I want to send my condolences to you and the rest of the USC community. What happened to JT Daniels is just completely unfortunate. My thoughts and prayers go out to him, his family, and the entire USC community. I think he's an incredible young talent, and I hope he comes back stronger and better than ever.
Yeah, it's definitely a unfortunate kind of end of the first half there. he had started to show some growth throughout the latter half of last season, and then into the first half of this game, he was rolling. But I definitely think that with JT going out and Costello also a little bit in
he's in concussion protocol. Yeah.
So I think that both of those two kind of twists being thrown into this game are going to make this West Coast matchup a little bit more intriguing.
Stanford's second guy, though, Mills, was the number one pocket passer in his draft class coming out of high school. I happen to think that Stanford's going to control the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, and that they're going to stroll down to Southern California and put a beating down on the USC Trojans. And I know you don't agree with me. Maybe tell me why.
Looking at the way Stanford is, I think they had a little bit of a down year compared to maybe what some of the expectations were last year in terms of their offensive production. Bryce Love didn't look quite the same. I think going into this year, they struggled a little bit. I know it's always tough for quarterbacks to kind of just be shoved into the game right away. I thought that Stanford's offense, maybe it's first game jitters. I thought that they were kind of wasting a little bit of opportunities. The fumble in the first half, they got the ball inside the opponent's 50 on their side of the 50 and ended up having to punt that away. I think that they're definitely going to have to put up more than 10 points, and then the touchdown they had in the last 20 seconds of the game. I think that they're definitely going to need to score.
To be honest with you, they held USC to 3 last year with JT Daniels. We held you to 3 last year with JT Daniels. I don't know where.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to have to be a ton of points. I think Stanford controls the line of scrimmage, and Adebo locks down Tyler Vaughn's, and I think that Amon-Ra better have one heck of a game if USC is going to stay in it.
Yeah, I think the biggest change for SC heading into this year, and the reason for a lot of optimism, is the Graham Harrell air raid offense. The first half, it was rolling. We scored 14 points in the first 8 minutes of the game or so. If they can keep the ball moving, keeping a good pace on offense, keeping the Stanford defense uncomfortable, I think that we have a good chance to win the game. If the running attack is working like it did 2 years ago in the Coliseum, I think that we'll be in good hands. I know Stanford recently ruled their left tackle, I believe.
Walker Little. He's a projected top 10 pick.
I know he dislocated his knee on that game against Northwestern, so I think that'll definitely throw a little bit of uneasiness into Stanford and what they're trying to do.
That's a big loss.
Especially if Costello isn't ready to go, they're definitely going to have to rely on their running game to try and push the pile. But the key matchup I think really is, SC's strength of defense is the front seven. A little bit of a veteran-lined defensive line and some talented linebackers. Like you mentioned, I think SC's secondary is really young. I think they have potential, but they didn't get tested a whole lot against Fresno State, so that could be something that Shaw is looking at trying to exploit in the coming matchup. But I think the biggest matchup to watch is going to be the Stanford O-line, replacing Walker Little, and how they do against the veteran lined Trojan front, and then on the other side of the ball, how well Keaton Slovis, the new freshman quarterback for SC, can handle playing against an actual tough opponent, top 25 opponent in Stanford in his first real action.
Yeah, I would agree that this game is going to be won or lost at the line of scrimmage. Now, I think the one X factor sort of for each team, Adebo, Stanford's stud corner, usually whoever he guards is going to be locked down. I'm assuming that's Tyler Vaughn's. I think the X factors in this game, outside of winning the game at the line of scrimmage, are going to be Colby Parkinson and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Can you sort of tell me your expertise, if you were either team, how do you intend to stop those players?
For Stanford, I think the biggest thing in kind of containing this SC attack, the USC running game is kind of wishy-washy. What I would do if I was them is definitely load the box, make USC have to beat you with their freshman quarterback, and try and really spread the ball around with more deeper throws, because in the second half against Fresno State, they definitely limited the playbook. You could definitely tell that, and we're going to a more quick passing game. So I think that playing close to the line of scrimmage and forcing USC to have to make plays over the top with their quarterback is, I think, definitely going to be something that Stanford should look to in trying to contain SC in their passing attack. And then what was the other question you asked? Sorry.
Colby Parkinson. What would your plans be if you're USC's defensive coordinator? How do you intend to stop him in this game?
USC side of the ball, I definitely think very similar strategy, trying to contain the talented tight end. Stanford, I think that forcing Stanford to have to go over the top and hit the tight ends as they love to do over the middle on these deep balls. When they lull you to sleep with the running game, open you up with the play action, get the tight ends involved. I think that SC needs to be able to put pressure on the quarterback to not allow these tight ends to roam down the field too much, and force the young, inexperienced quarterback to really have to beat you over the top with quick decisions, and force the offensive line for Stanford one man down and that really key big man on the left tackle to have to protect against 5-6 guys at a time. So I think the key on both sides: load the box, make the inexperienced quarterback beat you, and keep pressure on him.
Cade, thank you so much for coming on today. It's been a pleasure. Real quick on your way out, can I get your pick on the Texas LSU game this week?
Texas LSU game, it's in Austin. I think Texas is back. I love their
you're out of
defense.
Your mind. SEC dominance.
I think their defense is going to play well enough, coming up to confidence against Georgia last year. I like the weapons Texas has. I'm taking Texas by a touchdown.
I'm taking LSU by 2 touchdowns, buddy. We're going to have to put some money on that one.
All right.
Cade, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on today. Hope to have you back on soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, and that'll be it for us today at Clutch Time. Make sure you tune into our next episode where I make all my NFL and college picks for the week. Thanks for watching.